And we are live. It's Dr. J here in the house. Today, we're going to be talking all about fish oil, how to use it to reduce inflammation. We're going to be going over all the specifics here today and making sense of it. All right, guys. So before we dive in, please see the comments down below. Love to see your thoughts and give me a thumbs up. We'll appreciate it for the show. All right, so let's dive in. We're going to talk about some of the benefits of fish oil. Fish oil is an omega-3 fatty acid. We'll talk about what that means, how to use it, good places in your diet, some of the known benefits or in the known side effects that your doctor or you're not going to see typically on YouTube and on podcasts. I'm going to be kind of going into the nitty-gritty mechanisms of that, and we'll dive into it today. All right. So first off, before we dive in, do you need fish oil? So I typically recommend get 4 to 5 servings of fish a week. It could be wild Alaskan sockeye. It could be, some of the flash frozen stuff that you see at Costco. It's pretty good because it's flash frozen and it's wild caught. That's good. You can do Vital Farms is another good option too. Flash frozen is great unless you live by the coast where you can get it, pretty fresh that day. It's a great option for it. I always cook it with a good fatty acid, like a good butter or coconut oil or tallow. Usually bake it at 350, 375, 20, 25 minutes is usually pretty good. But that's a good source of omega-3s. If you're not getting that, 4 or 5 times a week, then you definitely want to be supplementing it. So when we use fish oil, we want to use a good, clean, smaller fish, sardines, anchovies. These are going to be great sources, and we want to get it filtered out, really have a good, sources of it. We want it molecularly distilled. We want to make sure there's no impurities, mercury, any pesticides, any junk in the water, especially if you're getting it from factory farm type of fish. They have like these little fish nets where they have little farms of fish and they feed them a bunch of unnatural diet. They even inject dye in there because there's no omega-3. The omega-3 gives that salmon that pink color, and so if they're not getting the omega-3 from the algae and from the actual environment, it gets gray. They actually have to color them and dye them. So you want to have good omega-3 in the fish from fish being more wild, actually getting natural foods. That's a big deal. Plus they don't get antibiotics and a bunch of GMOs either. So you want to make sure wild Alaskan cod is great, or any of the flash frozen stuff. There's some decent stuff at Costco, Vital Farms, good online stuff there, or your local butcher that would have something more fresh is great. When I go out to eat, usually the best thing I'll get is like something on the seafood side because it's hard to do seafood good, right? It's really hard to do it good. All right, so supplement-wise, we'll talk about some of the mechanisms. So in my line, we have a product called Omega-3 Supreme. We choose good sources. It's going to be clean. It's not going to be oxidized. We'll add an antioxidant in there to stable it. Sometimes we'll add lipase into the products to make sure they can be broken down and digested well. So let me go over some of the mechanisms here. Let's go dive into it, guys. All right, here. So reducing inflammation at the root. This is a key one. So it replaces inflammatory pro-fatty acids. So arachidonic acid is an omega-6 fatty acid. You'll get this from meat and things like that, right? Steak, grass-fed beef, but you'll get less of it when it's grass-fed because you'll get a lot more GLA fatty acid. You'll actually get more omega-3 in your steak, in your meat when it's grass-fed because of the grains are going to have more of that arachidonic, which is omega-6. And so omega-3 is going to be like your EPA. That's your eicosapentaenoic acid. That's a 20 carbon chain fatty acid. Then you have your 22 carbon called DHA, docosahexaenoic acid. EPA, more anti-inflammatory. DHA, more pro for the brain and for the neurological tissue. So really good there. And again, you'll have your 18 carbon, which will be your alpha linolenic fatty acid. That's going to be your flaxseed oil. Vegan vegetarians think, I'm going to get my omega-3s via flax. Only about 15% converts. I think it's the delta-5 desaturase enzyme. When you're inflamed, you have insulin resistance, you're going to have even less activation. So you don't get a lot of that conversion from the 18 alpha-linolenic to the 20 eicosapentaenoic EPA to the 22, the docosahexaenoic, that's the DHA. So you don't get that conversion happening. But that good omega-3, omega-6 balance, about a 1 on the 3 to about a 1-to-1 to a 1-to-4 is typically acceptable, right? And again, you get the meats that are more grass-fed, it'll be better. Produces anti-inflammatory molecules, so you get resolvins, right? These are pro-resolving mediator compounds. There's actually some specific omega-3s that will have these pro-resolving compounds, protectins and myricins, but these are an additional component that you'll see concentrated in certain omega-3 products. So very anti-inflammatory. Reducing pro-inflammatory eicosanoids. Again, this is going to help the less aggressive prostaglandin. So you're going to have prostaglandin 2 or eicosanoid 2, which is going to be more inflammatory. And so EPA and DHA will reduce that prostaglandin 2, and it will help bump up the eicosanoid 1 and 3. So will black currant seed oil too. This is really cool. So this activates PPAR receptor sites. It blocks nuclear factor beta, kappa beta, and it lowers cytokines, TNF alpha, interleukin 1 beta, interleukin 6. I'll talk more about these PPAR receptors. This is really interesting. Actually, I'll skip to it now. So there's medications out there that are actually PPAR agonist medications. They work on typically blood sugar. I'm not sure the exact names of the meds. Let me go pull them up. But fish oil works on it. So yeah, you have your PPAR agonist drugs. Yeah, so these are going to be yeah. So PPAR agonists are used to treat type 2 diabetes. Examples of those are pioglitazone, rosiglitazone. So these are PPAR agonists, right? And so omega-3s, fish oil, are going to have this PPAR alpha boosting fat burning effect. They're going to lower triglycerides because they're going to help burn fat better. The PPAR gamma improves insulin sensitivity, right? So essentially, you have your receptor site on the outside of the fat, right? On the outside of your cell. So you have your cell membrane, right? The outside membrane is going to be a lipid bilayer, and you have receptor sites on that lipid bilayer. And so essentially, hormones have to bind to that lipid bilayer. And if that lipid bilayer is full of trans fat or oxidized fatty acid, the signaling of that hormone docking into that receptor site is not going to be good. And so PPAR agonist, whether it's an alpha or a gamma, it's going to allow the insulin, it's going to allow the hormones to dock onto that cell membrane and work better. So it's going to allow better cellular communication. That's why excess, let's say omega-6 fats that are pro-oxidized, more trans fats that are hydrogenated, they're going to make the cell membrane more inflexible. When the cell's more inflexible, it's not going to communicate. Hormones aren't going to bind to the receptor sites well. And again, with things like insulin, high levels of insulin will make it hard for you to utilize fat for fuel. When insulin goes up, the enzyme called hormone sensitive lipase goes down, and that's going to decrease the carnitine shuttle. So the carnitine shuttle is about taking essentially fatty acids. It utilizes carnitine to shovel it into the mitochondria. So we need insulin low, hormone sensitive lipase high, and then the carnitine shuttle is more activated. So these are kind of cool mechanisms here. I mean, I just kind of looked at what makes sense for me that no one talks about, that's interesting, that kind of piques my interest. I'm trying to bring it to you guys here. So this is cool. A lot of medications for blood sugar are based on this PPAR pathway, and you get that through omega-3s, which is pretty cool. This is really cool because I see so many patients that have adrenal and cortisol and hormonal imbalances. So the big thing is it provides essential fatty acids for hormone synthesis. And again, you're still missing cholesterol. That's why you want to have animal fat in there. You want to have, healthy cholesterol, healthy fat soluble vitamins A, D, E, and K. You want animal cholesterol in with these fatty acids because that's going to provide the building blocks for your cholesterol-based hormones. We talked about how it helps with insulin sensitivity because it works on these PPAR pathways, right? These PPAR pathways are fascinating, and that stands for. Let's see, I get the acronym for it for you guys. I thought I had it written down here. Pull it up here. Yeah, peroxisome proliferating activating receptor. Yeah, peroxisome proliferator activated receptor. So it's going to work on this outside part of the cell membrane, which is pretty cool. And also these medications, they also are natural COX inhibitors, COX 1, 2, 3. These are, they natural reduce inflammation as well. Like you think about Vioxx from the early 2000s, that inhibited it too much to the point where you didn't have enough COX enzyme to build back the heart lining or build back the gut lining, and it created a lot of problems. Okay, so now we talk about here. So hormone synthesis, it's going to help with insulin sensitivity. So that's going to help with PCOS, right? Too much insulin, that's going to cause more PCOS. It's also going to help with estrogen dominance, right? The more we help with inflammation, the more progesterone is anti-inflammatory. So if we can reduce inflammation, then we're not going to be using progesterone to reduce inflammation. When we support inflammation load, you're supporting the adrenals. Why? Because what do the adrenals do? They help reduce inflammation. So the more we can reduce it naturally, the less the adrenals have to come to the rescue. And this is what I was talking about earlier, enhancing hormone receptor function via healthier cell membranes, right? These PPAR components, right? If you look here on the outer part of the cell membrane. Oh, can I share it with you guys? Let me see if I can pull this up for you guys. Yeah, let me see if I can pull this up. That'd be really cool if I could show it to you. Replace screen. Let me see if I can find that for you. Here we go. This is cool. So you can see here, right, your lipooxygenase and your cyclooxygenase. These are your COX enzymes, your LOX and your COX enzymes here, really important for reducing inflammation. And you can see these PPAR components here, right? These PPAR components, this is what the fatty acids are going to work on and actually help support, right? PPAR agonist, meaning it's going to stimulate these communicating and working better. So when we talk about things being a PPAR activated receptor, they're going to help stimulate that receptor site so it works better. So hope that makes sense there, y'all. I'm going to pull up my document again. Give me one sec to pull that back up. Sweet. See, that works. All right, let me get this back up for you guys. I got to stop sharing, and I got to share again. That's what happens when you do things on the fly. All right, good. So here we go. So aids in estrogen detoxification. So this is pretty cool, right? So it supports our phase 1 detoxification, right? Why? Because it supports these cytochrome P450 enzymes, and it favors 2-hydroxyestrogen. So when we go look at a Dutch test, right, we'll look at these, it'll have like the 2 pathway, the 4 and the 16 pathway, right? So your 4 and 16 actually create DNA damage. They create cellular mutations and can go down cancer pathways. The 2 is actually a healthier. We want too much of the 2. And how we get more 2 is we get it through B vitamins, through methylation, through folate, through cysteine, through choline. So all kinds of good amino acids, plant-based nutrients, and keeping insulin in check. So we get more of the 2. And so when we have good, healthy fish oil, it's going to provide more of that 2 estrogen metabolism. It's going to enhance phase 2. So this is going to be more our amino acid based part of the detox pathway. This is going to help more estrogen clearance, right? Because it's going to work more on supporting methylation and glucuronidation. And then again, bile flow. When we're eating fat, that's going to support bile moving because bile gets stimulated and released with cholecystokinin. And what stimulates cholecystokinin? But fat ingestion. So when we eat healthy fats, we release bile, and some of that bile is going to have toxins and junk in it that will go out the stool. And so eating good fats are important. And then potential caution. So I added this in here, right? When I was organizing my notes, you go too high in fish oil. So sometimes we'll go high in fish oil, right? Sometimes we have patients that have a lot of inflammation and we're like, what natural things can we do to reduce inflammation? So we'll do higher fish oil, maybe 6 to 8 grams, but we have to be very careful. We have to choose good quality fish oil that's not oxidized. Maybe there's some extra vitamin E or rosemary oil in there. Maybe we're using like fish oil krill oil that's gonna have astaxanthin in there. Or maybe we're doing cod liver oil that's gonna have more vitamin A. Again, like cod liver oil. Cod liver oil plugs in. It's got about 20 to 30% less EPA to DHA fat, but the benefit is you're going to have more vitamin A. So vitamin A is great for skin. It's going to have some other important nutrients for, your brain and for your cellular health, especially skin issues. We want more vitamin A to help that sebum production kind of modulate. But in general, too much of it, the lipids oxidize. So lipid peroxides mean nothing more than lipids oxidizing. Too much. Omega-3s are fragile fatty acids, so they can oxidize, they can break down. Why do they call omega-3s, fish oil omega-3s? Because when you look at a fatty bond, like a fatty acid bond, it's a carbon and it's a single bond to a carbon to a single bond to a carbon. And so how it looks is like a carbon, 3 hydrogens, then to another carbon, and then 2 hydrogens to a carbon and 2. And so, for instance, the first, second, the third bond would be where that omega bond is, or that double bond is. The double would be in that third position, all right? And a fatty acid that's like all single bonds, it's straight, makes it stable. When it puts a double bond in there, it starts to crink. So if you take an organic chemistry, you actually have the structures, you're like, oh, it starts to move and you can bend it. That bending makes it more prone to oxidation. So they're just giving you organic chemistry 101 here. And so when they say a saturated fatty acid, they're talking about the carbons being saturated. A carbon can only hold 4 bonds. And so when a carbon's saturated, that means all the fatty acids are single bonds, more stable, less oxidation, and it's not going to have any double bonds, so it's more stable. So now when we have an omega-3, Now that double bond starts to come in at that third bond, or an omega-6 starts to come in at the sixth bond. And that's how it gets its name. All right. Again, omega-3s, more anti-inflammatory, omega-6, more processed. And the reason why omega-6 are so bad is because the processing to get most omega-6 fats out, it's a lot of processing, a lot of oxidation, a lot of high heat, a lot of high pressure. You go on YouTube, type in how canola oil is made. There's like 20, it's like 30 or 40 steps. They use hexane, they use bleach and deodorizers just to make it look clean because the process is nasty. Now, there are some plant-based oils that if you look at them and they're single source and they're cold pressed, it's better because now they're not going to be oxidized. These are going to be more of your monosaturated fats, right? They're only going to have one double bond typically. These are going to be your olive oil and your avocado oil. And so these are better because if they're single source, you got to look for single, because if they're not single, a lot of times they cut it with soy or canola or other junky fats. And so then you want to have just single source and you want cold pressed. And again, coconut oil, fine. And even like meat, I'd rather have like grain-fed meat because at least the double bonds, at least the fatty acids in there, because it's more saturated, is going to be less prone to oxidation and hasn't gone through this process that's going to rancidify the fats, where your vegetable oils are going to be a lot more processed and you'll have a lot more oxidation there. And again, your cell membranes are always turning over. So the healthier fats you put in, you have healthier cell membranes. You have those PPAR agonist compounds, those peroxisome proliferated activated receptor sites. They're going to be more upregulated with good fats. You're going to have better cellular communication. You're going to have less, you have more insulin sensitivity as well. So if we take higher fish oil, take extra vitamin E, take extra vitamin C as well. Can be really good options just to make sure you're on point. So I'd always tell patients, take some extra antioxidants while you're taking it, and then make sure the source is good. Keep it in the fridge if you don't mind, and keep it in capsules too. So hope that makes sense, guys. There's a lot you can do with fish oil. I tell patients, maximize it in the diet. 1 gram or 2 a day can't hurt. My kids get about 0.5 gram of cod liver oil every single day, and they eat pretty good. And I give them, like, their supplements are going to be organs as well, because I want to have a lot of good vitamin A. The benefit of cod liver oil is extra, vitamin A in there is really, really good, especially for skin and for immune function too. So great way to think about getting extra healthy fats. But I tell patients, make sure at least half of your fats are saturated. That way you're not going to be depleting your antioxidant reserves because of the lipid peroxide. So at least half your fats should be saturated. That's going to guarantee that you're not going to deplete your antioxidant reserves, and you're not going to be putting a bunch of junky fats in that are going to make your cell membranes more stiff and inflexible. Hope that makes sense. If you guys have any questions, feel free to chime in here. Love to see it. If not, you want to reach out. You want more support. You want more diet support. You want more hormone detox support. Put a link down below here. You can reach out to my staff and team. Happy to help you. And again, my thyroid book's out. thyroidreboot.com. It'll bring you right to Amazon. Feel free, support me there. It's a great book. My life's work is there. A lot of good pictures. I had lots of diagrams, lots of things. I paid an artist, I think, over $5,000 just to put really good pictures in the book, because I wanted to have images, because people learn by pictures. And so I wanted to put lots of images in that book. So feel free. That's how I learn. That's how I kind of teach patients, with my euphemisms and my analogies. So it's easier to understand a concept than to memorize something. So if you can conceptually understand it, it's easier and better. I may come back with another live video in a few minutes. If you guys enjoy it, thumbs up, reach out. You want more support.